Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdicus Dave, and today I'm joined by Mark and Gonzo of Dungeon Class. How you guys doing?
Right.
Doing great. Yeah, doing great,
Good to
Dave.
be here.
Yep.
It's
Thanks for
awesome to
having
have you
us.
guys on. We've kind of been. I've seen you guys start when you had like just a handful of subscribers. You guys are
Yeah.
Yeah.
humming along, growing your fan base of subscribers, and you're regularly putting out content, which
Yeah,
is
we're
awesome.
trying. Yeah, we're
So,
trying the best we can through COVID, through the world the way it is. But yeah.
Yeah.
so how did you guys get started with Dungeon Class?
Go ahead, Gonzo.
Okay.
It's the origin
Well,
story.
okay. The origin story is kind of interesting for us. Is that we had played first edition growing up as kids, part of second, dabbled in the third, and then just not played much at all. And he and I actually didn't play. We played together as kids in scout camp, and then fifth edition came out. I picked up the player's handbook and I was like, this looks great. And I think I can learn it. I went to YouTube. I followed you guys. I followed, Runehammer and just a couple others and learned the game through there. And then started playing with my family, invited Mark over. We started playing and it just kind of grew from there. We loved it. And we've taught everyone that we could that's in our circle and circles about the game and brought them in. And then we really felt like, that we enjoy it so much and there's so many benefits to this that like you guys and like other good channels, we want to just share that with whoever wants to hear it. And so we decided, let's do a YouTube channel on D&D. We'll focus on fifth edition because that's what's new. And we'll just share our thoughts on things. And they may be different than other people's. They may be the same, but we just wanted to expand the game to anyone that wants to hear it. And that's how we kind of started doing YouTube, not realizing the machine that it is and the work that it's involved. We both have full-time careers.
Yeah.
I run a business. Mark's a full-time teacher. I mean, we have a lot going on in our lives and on top of this. And this is just one of our many hobbies. So
Yeah.
that's
Honestly,
how we started.
one of the things we committed to was putting out one a week. And at times we're like, why did we do that? Once a week. I see some of the other ones are like one a month or one every 2 weeks. I'm like,
yeah,
man,
just dropping content consistently without really specifying.
Yeah.
That would have been smarter for us, but
right.
we kind of dove into it, Dave. And honestly, without kissing your butt too much, it really was because watching guys like you guys do it and sharing your thoughts and being like an honest conversation with two buddies with differing opinions. And I like that. I like that. Because you do learn, everyone sees the game differently. They get different things out of it and put different things into it. And so there's always room to hear more thoughts on that in my mind. But it's been a lot of fun and a growing experience for sure for all of us.
Yeah, in the early days, we had like 3 or 4 of us on camera at once. It was like a free for all.
Yeah, it was.
I've gone back and like listened to some of those and even like tried to do like transcription for some of them. Like, oh my God, how can anybody watch this? It's like all we do is talk over each other.
But I gravitated towards that. And I think it was just the fact that it felt like we were sitting in the living room with you guys and talking about, like you said, nerds talking about nerds. Like it felt real and not scripted. And I will say, I've said this before, but I'm more gravitated to the channels that are less scripted and a little more open dialogue. When I watch videos. Now I'll watch scripted videos and those are very informative and they're actually better if you're trying to learn something point by point or whatever. But I don't know, for me, it's just easier to get to connect with people that can just talk about things and how it comes up. So
yeah, it reminds me of people hanging out at the comic shop talking about comics. It's kind of what your channel is like, guys hanging out with talking about D&D is what it looked like. So we like that.
Yeah, I mean, that was the vibe we kind of decided to go with early on. At first, we started emulating like talking head videos, and I was like, this is weird. Let's just us talk and see how that goes. So you guys skipped second through fourth?
Pretty much. I played second edition a little bit, maybe about a year or so. But at that point, I married and I popped out 4 kids in 6 years. So that was the end of me doing any hobby. And then as my kids got older, I tried to dive in and teach my kids third edition or 3.5 at that point. And so I bought the handbook, I bought the stuff, I grabbed dice, I got all my kids' dice, and they were ages 12 to 6. And third edition did not translate. My wife wasn't interested at all. So I tried it. My 12-year-old was in it, but the rest were just kind of, and it was so rules heavy and stuff. I liked it. I bought the stuff and looked through it, but I never got a chance to play very much at all. So
yeah. I know around here, I kept up on the edition somewhat, but where we lived, there just weren't many people to play with. Like, we didn't have gaming stores. We had a couple comic shops, and it was really hard to find people to play with. And that was kind of the biggest problem, I think, for that.
Yeah, we do live in Bradenton, Florida, which is right on the beach. And so it's 80% population's older. And there's not a lot of younger people or younger there is now, but it wasn't at the time.
Yeah.
Right.
And so,
well, I mean, you guys live there and you were playing first edition, so you kind of nailed the order.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right. But fifth edition just hit that sweet spot for me where you could learn it and you could learn it quickly enough to teach it. Like, and that helps you grow your group. If you want to play, the first thing you want to do is decide. If you want people to play, guess what? You have to be the DM, right? Because you know, and then you got to learn it enough to fake it, and then teach other people to do it. I have a large family, so I had an instant group of, now they were much older, and they loved it. And Mark came over on Crazy Uncle Mark, and it just blew up into this great big thing. And he's taught his nieces and nephews now, who are all different ages, and they're all playing in different parts of the country.
If you tried, teach your kids third, and they were 6 to 12, they must be grown now then.
They are. My youngest is 17. She'll be 17 next week. And she's still at home. My oldest is 23. He works for my company. My daughter also works for my company. She's 22. And then I have a son who's 18, who's graduated and about to go on a mission for the church for a couple of years in California and do all kinds. But he's the smartest of all of us. He's a great DM, knows all the rules. Although he only read the handbook once, he just got that kind of memory. And
which is really fun to DM with someone that's like memorized the handbook. You know?
Rules lawyer.
Like, that's not how that spell works. Like,
shut up, kid.
Exactly.
Rocks fall, you all die.
That's right.
That's right. So it's been a great journey for us. It's brought us back. I mean, the nostalgia factor, you can see behind Mark, and I have the same thing. We have all our old stuff, and it's just been nice to delve into that again and bring it to 5th edition games. I go in and find some of my old modules, and not the ones that have been redone, like in Tales of Yawning Portal, but some of the obscure ones, and just pull stuff out of there. Gauntlet, I think is the name of one or something, but and just turn it into a side jaunt for my group, and they love it. And they, I just pull it from any resource, old Dragon magazines, Dungeon magazines, from 3rd edition, from 2nd and 1st edition. It's great stuff, and the stories never get old. You just change the stats. So
5e is easy to convert to, comparable to other, other editions as well. I mean, 4th might be a little tricky, but other than that, the others convert really easy. I've straight up just used 3rd edition stuff, and just been like, it's just going to be a little bit harder because the numbers work differently.
Right. Now, have you played all the way through? Have you played?
Yeah, we have actually.
That's great.
Like, we might have had, we've gone on hiatus for 6 months here and there, but so I think I was like 21, 22 when we started the group that kind of spawned Nerdarchy, and my brother was 16, and Ted was between us somewhere. I guess he's 2 or 3 years younger than me. So the dynamics has always changed. How often we got together and how big the group has kind of changed over the years. But we kind of just kept going with it. From 22 to 27 for a solid 5 years. We were clockwork.
That's awesome.
Every Saturday.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was good. I had settled down kind of early. Got married, bought a house,
right,
and that stuff. So that's what I did with my weekends. We would get together every Saturday and play D&D. I mean, I guess other people were hitting the bars or or watching sports or whatever. This was our social thing. And I feel like over the years it kind of moved more away from the game and more about being the game was just something we did when we got together. Right. So So this group has been gone for like 20 plus years, basically.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. And we can tell that when we hear your stories. I know you've said you've played like Mutants and Masterminds and some other games too.
Yeah.
When you've taken breaks from D&D, but it always brings you back in. There's just something about the setting itself, the fantasy setting, that it's hard to beat, or the original.
So you guys were scouts and started in scouts?
Yeah, when we were supposed to be going to merit badge camps, we were back in our cabins in the heat of Florida playing D&D, and then of course all night.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a way to.
I remember one time we were playing. One of the guys, he got so like into it and was like talking. It reminded me of at that time that movie Mazes and Monsters was out, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is just like that movie, And we're like, keep an eye on that guy. He might disappear. I mean, he was so in. That's all he talked about, like all day and the next day, because he was so enamored with it. But that to me was one of the things that kind of stuck with me. That man, people really get into this game and really love it, and they're immediately like all in on it. And there's people and that happened again with my nephews and nieces when I taught them how to play. It was such an unlikely combination. 17-year-olds all the way up to 17. I had
7 to 17.
Yeah, 7 to 17. 7-year-old all the way up to 17. A whole mixed group. There was 10 in the group. Group of 10.
And they split. 9. Tell me they split the party.
Well, they did at one point. They did, and it was amazing because like little things I didn't expect with little kids is like they like the shopping. They like to get the gold and go buy stuff. Yeah. I'm like, oh, that's like the worst part of D&D, but okay, And so they wanted, that was very important, and they all had to buy pets. That was little things you don't think about with kids, but man, kids, they were into it.
Kids like the pets and the steel. Yeah, like those are like two of the main things. They're going to be kleptos, and
they were texting me, "I'm going to steal this. I want to do that."
Yep. It's like they use it as an excuse to try and push those boundaries.
Yeah.
So I find that's a common theme among kids, and also the pet collectors.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
And so the shopping thing. I mean, I want to say it's a newer gamer. It's like a newer thing in gaming. Like everyone wants to do the shopping.
Yeah.
Which coming from first and second edition, where it's like you kind of like started at the dungeon, right? Like you're just outside the dungeon and you're gonna go into it, and we didn't do that much stuff in town. So it's definitely, the game has definitely evolved and changed how people play for sure over the years.
Right.
It's very much more narrative driven now than it was when we started.
Let me ask you, what do you think about that? What do you think about being more story driven versus like go in and conquer, which is what we started, all three of us started that way.
I think we, even as a group, we moved in that direction eventually anyway, right? Like, and also too, like with our group, because, when we started, we would get players that were in high school. We would get players that were still in college because like, my brother was 16 and so he was still in high school. Ted, was in college. So, the two of them would end up funneling a lot of players in, and then we would just, whoever kind of showed up. So we kind of ran the gambit when it came to ages, but by getting like, those younger players in, I think what that did for our group was you got people that were kind of like more interested in theater, like theater kids and stuff like that. Right, so that kind of changes the dynamic a little bit for us. And, I will say the shopping thing is quite new. Like that never took with our group, but, the narrative elements of the game, we were definitely moving in that direction. And then, I think after we started Nerdarchy and started spending more time online, even more so, like our games don't have a lot of combats in them. Like, three encounters in a session for us is a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Usually like there's one, and it also changes how you can play the game too, because it's like when your players are like, oh, this is our one encounter. So they all just kind of Nova. It totally messes with the encounter system. Like I couldn't even imagine, like the DMG is like 6 to 8 encounters, before a long rest. I couldn't even imagine playing that style.
No way.
Anymore. No. What about you guys? What kind of games are you guys playing and running?
We like to really pretty much homebrew everything, and our sessions, we're limited by time a little bit, having jobs and stuff and finding the time to play.
Yeah.
And honestly, I find it harder to stay up late than I used to, and it's like, it requires a lot of energy drinks. So I'm starting to fade at 10 o'clock, I'm like, so that definitely limits the encounters. And for, depending on who's DMing, it better be engaging, because I start to, I'm up at 5:30.
Dave, you may find this as well, but one of our biggest encounters that our players spend a lot of time with and is sometimes defeats the players outright is doors. Just having doors. Okay,
they're so
I listen.
Sinister.
Yes, I listen. I poke it with something to see if it's a mimic. I check for traps. I disable the lock. I peek in. It's the players can become so careful, and that's our fault for trying to kill them all the time, that they a door takes half the night sometimes. And if you have a hallway, some of these old modules have 50 barrack rooms, And I remember as a kid, I remember going through each one, barging in, looting, and moving on to next, killing what's in there. Not these guys, man. They'll do all these things at each door. And so you, as a DM, I've had to, because it's so narrative, we've had to limit the amount of doors in their way or that kind of thing.
If they enter the dungeon, all the doors have been removed from their hinges. There's just hinges.
I do. Luckily, when we play with our barbarian, he's up in Idaho for school right now, but he barges through every door. So he speeds things up for the game. He kicks it down. We have another one that plays with us that'll do that just to keep things moving. And of course, then that leads to combat, because sometimes there is something behind the door or whatever. But man, I guess going back to the narrative thing, the players care so much about their characters.
Yes.
They don't want to barge through. When you and I first started playing, and Mark, we'll just roll a new character. Let's just see what's there. It was all about the exploration and finding out what cool monster was behind each door. No rhyme or reason to them. But now it's like, I don't want my player to die. I'm going to be very careful, use all my skills I have, and do every check I can. And
they're very precious with the characters compared to like in the old days, you could just expect to show up with a stack of characters.
That's right. That's right. And on the reverse of that, death really is difficult. It means something. If a player character dies nowadays, it seems like in our group, it's a big deal. My ranger lost her cat that she leveled up to level 10 with, and her cat died, her big Black Panther. And it was an emotional moment, at the table.
Yeah. That's not surprising at all. That's my biggest quibble with the Beastmaster is I know everyone complains about different things about it, and I was I just think it needs more hit points so it doesn't one shot it.
Yeah, we were trying to do that, just homebrewing it. This is when the game first came out. I was giving it a little more hit points and having it when she leveled up be able to do a little more damage to try to balance it, because that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, the damage isn't so bad. The armor classes are okay.
Yeah,
because they get the proficiency bonus to everything. So I feel like that kind of levels it out. But none of that saves you when you just don't have any hit points.
Right, that's true. Yep, that's very true.
I mean, that's what I found, and then so I do the same thing. I just I started using the sidekick rules for the beast companions that have been in my games and just giving them more hit points.
Write that down. That's a good idea, actually.
I mean, or even simpler than that. I think you just double their hit points and they'll be good.
Yeah, that's true, because it's basically another character. So depending on the size of the group you're playing with the Beastmaster Ranger, you've got another character that has a turn, can be, give everyone else advantage because it's up there terrorizing whatever's going on. And so that works good. But yeah, it's been fun. I also noticed one thing too, Dave, when we started playing, my players, my family, including Mark, picked characters that they would want to be. So these are their first characters, and I could not kill them. They will go through hell itself, if that's the plane where their character is, to go get that person, because they related them part of themselves in creating this character, and it was their first experience with D&D, really. Mm-hmm. So I think you and I remember too. Your first one is always so amazing, and but it's I've just noticed that like those characters are sacred, and now we've leveled up to the point where we've kind of paused that campaign because we're at 14th level. The game's almost broken, so we've at a good stopping point. We've played a lot of other characters now since then, but if we dip back into there, it's interesting how they picked people that they would like to be. Like my son was a wild magic gnome, Grimfoodle the Fourth or whatever, wild magic gnome going around. And my other
a great name.
My daughter, who's very mothering and she's just a good caretaking person, was a life cleric. Yeah. And it was like, no, we're not going through that door. No, she's very protective of the group. It's interesting. Their own personality was involved in each character. And then when I got to play, when Mark DM'd, I picked a bard because I always wanted to be like Bruce Springsteen or somebody. And I picked a bard that was, out there singing away and playing his guitar and all that. So
yeah, I like with the kids that they want to be one way in their character, but they couldn't help their own personality coming through. Mm-hmm. You know, there's Ben in particular was one that he just couldn't help himself. Like if you're supposed to be a really edgy, maybe even an evil kind of bending person, yeah, he's not that kind of person.
It didn't work out that way. Yeah.
Nope. And you just watch and you're like, yeah, that's not going to work out. And it didn't. He couldn't help himself. Yeah, it's kind of funny.
So is most of your gaming, with 5e, with family?
Yeah, it is. It is, and we both have large families, and so we have built-in playing groups. We haven't gone to the gaming stores and played there. We haven't. Our first gaming convention where we would actually play would have been yours.
Yeah.
We just haven't been. We've been blessed. It's a blessing because you know how hard it is for people to find people to play with, and I think you have a similar story where you had a kind of a built-in group that you grew up with playing. But yeah, most of our gaming experience is with our group, our core groups here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's really cool, and it's also like a little bit different experience that you guys have with the game than other people. Then,
right? Yeah, that's true. We don't have a lot of the nightmares that people deal with when you sit down and you have the people, because communication is the biggest key to this game. It always has been. Yeah. And we already have those open lines of communication and trust and all those things that have to be built if you sit down with a group of strangers.
Yeah.
So that, and that's what we were going to find out and learn from at the convention scene. And we're going to get going as soon as the conventions start up. We're planning on traveling to different ones, playing, maybe DMing if they want us, and kind of, spreading the joy that comes from being together and learning and having fun. So
I'm sure you guys get a lot of questions from people through your channel, and some of these questions is just like, who are you playing with? To have this be an issue or come up.
Right. Yes. Oh, many times. We had that one with our one video about cheaters.
Yeah.
And my gosh, the number of stuff that came, like the comments, I'm like, who are these people? Like it was horrible. It was a husband and wife, and they were just horrible. They kept pledging the numbers all the time, and they would both tag team. I'm like going, what is happening right now? Like why would you let it get to that? So it's kind of funny that, but playing with the family, we know what they like and also what's appropriate for the group. We hear these horror stories about people bringing up inappropriate content. And I'm like, why would you do that? Like, I know the people I'm playing with very well. I can't imagine being in that for strangers. Like, you don't know people, and then you just throw in some edgy thing that's really dark and twisted. And like, I don't think so.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
How do you feel that affects the kind of content you guys put out?
So for me, I don't mind. I grew up, and so did Mark again, but we grew up Stephen King and like all the scary stuff. I love the horror theme, whatever. I'll throw it at them. And I've had my kids literally scream at the table or jump or whatever. And I've, other than the content as far as some of the sexual stuff or whatever that we would never have in our games. Other than that, I'm open. They know it. My players know it. I've had them going into, for some reason, I fall back on the terror and the horror theme at side quests and stuff. I've had them go down into a hag's pit where they found all the villagers that they were trying to find tied up to the wall with vines, and their blood was being drained into her chair of power. And it was gruesome, right? Very horrible kids were kind of spooked out by it. They really were. They even told me afterwards, like, that was gross. But they loved it and they had a great time. And we scared them. One of the things we like to do is, and my wife gets into this and some of the others, but we decorate the room quite a bit. We bring in fog machines. We do lights. My son had candles and even covered the candle. I was waiting for a fire to happen. Like just different things to create the atmosphere of spooky, because that was what he was running that night. And so that helps us too. And then music, it's setting the tone with some scary music. So I don't know.
I think the best thing right now is that half the chat, I think, is your family.
It probably is. Yeah, it probably is. I see Logan there. Yep. I see my daughter's in there. Yep. They jumped in. He's working right now too.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. As for the content of our channel, I don't know if that's what you were going. I think it's definitely been family oriented. We made a decision early on that we wanted our content to be family friendly. There's a lot of content out there, and I'm not knocking anybody. There's something for everybody, and I watch stuff that's maybe not necessarily family friendly too, different YouTubers, and that's fine. But having young kids is like, I have like 37 nephews and nieces, and they think their Uncle Mark is pretty cool, and I like to keep it that way. But I like for them to be able to watch and it's okay. Their parents are okay with watching what we're talking about. So
wait a minute. How many siblings do you have?
I'm the oldest of 5. My wife is the oldest of 9. So
oh my God. Yeah. Listen, I come from a very small family. Like you could have took my extended family and as we're dying off, like you could have put them around the same dinner table, right?
Oh wow, okay.
With the extended family. Right. My wife comes from a much larger family where there was like 25 grandchildren on one side and like 17 on the other. Right. But I'm fascinated. I'm kind of fascinated by that a little bit.
It's it makes for holiday get-togethers are pretty loud and chaotic, to say the least. Yeah. And that's the thing that was kind of interesting when I ran that game with the kids. It was like the parents were all like, "How are you holding their attention for like?" I had them for 3 hours one session, and another. I had 5 hours the first session.
5, yeah.
And it was like they were into it, and they didn't no electronics, nothing. They were so into it. They're like they were amazed that happened. But,
and how many of them did you have at the table?
I had, I believe it was 10, if I remember right.
You took a picture, it's like 10.
I took a picture. I think it was 10, if I remember right. But it was a lot. It was a lot, and they were all around. And it was. As a teacher, I thought I got this. I could do this. I knew how to break it down for them and all, and it worked out really well. But as far as our content, we try to keep it family friendly for anybody. Sure. And actually, a lot of times we bring up the fact that we feel like the best place to start playing, or if you aren't started there, is to play with your family, And the funny thing is, a lot of times we get comments, people go, "I never thought about playing with my family." And we're like,
we get the comment of, "How do I get my family to play a lot?"
Yeah. And honestly, I like to think that everybody can play, but not everybody will play, And so honestly, and a lot of people that we get to sit down and try it, we've had some that play and they're there for one game and not again, it's not their cup of tea. Yeah. But others that are just hooked and like, wow. And it's cool to see people that they didn't think they would like it, and they're just really into it. I'm like, this is fun. I'm like, yeah, this is why we do this.
And also too, like, I feel like if you don't pressure people, eventually they may come around.
Yes.
That's a good point.
Kind of from osmosis, but I feel like like the natural inclination, if you keep hammering someone, eventually they're not going to ever want to try it or do it just out of
That's true.
Just digging in their heels and being, stubborn.
That's true.
So I've seen that. So Rivers RPG channel wants to know, how long have you known each other? What ages were you guys?
All right. So Mark's older than me by a few years, but I known him since I met him when I was 10 years old, and then we were in Scouts at 12.
Yeah.
A long time, because I'm 49 today, this month. I turned 49.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Yeah.
So I would have been like 13 then. So
he was one of the older kids, too cool for me, but D&D, as you know, is the great equalizer. Yes. And that's true. You sit at the table, and at the time 15, 16-year-old son is the DM, and he's in charge and he's running the game. And it, D&D is such a great equalizer. And Mark, you mentioned this with the kids, but it was fun for the kids to be able to make decisions that they may normally would recede to their mom or dad. Like they were in full control of a character. And it's so different than a video game because it's so open world and it's so everything matters that they do. There's the repercussion of the things they make. And I think that's one of the appeals of D&D to everybody. When they sit down and play and they see, we're just having 4 hours went by. We just had a great time. We laughed. We were scared a little bit. We, had some sad time, whatever. But at the end of the day, there's never like a time when you've played, at least for us, and you felt like, man, I wasted that 4 hours or 3 hours, or like it's always been a beneficial night just to hang out. Because we talk about our lives and everything else too. We're communicating all the time, and it's just a time where everything else is off. And
you just kind of brought up a really great point, especially for kids, that are coming into the hobby. Like they get this autonomy over their characters and get to, fully kind of be in charge. But then, even a step further from that is if they're actually running the game and they're the GM or DM, that might be their first role, where they have authority and, or leadership of the group, and it's just a benefit of the game I'd never even really considered until I kind of heard you vocalize it. I'm like, the game has many benefits, and that's just another one to add to the list.
Right. Let alone all the other ones, from just having to do math and, in your head, and adding the dice and reading so much. I mean, if you become a DM, you're going to be an avid reader because there's so much content that you want to kind of get your hands on and stuff. And that improves so many skills that even us old guys need keep our brains active and
So Mark, have any of your kids from school found you?
Yes, they have. I have, so any given year I have 150 to 160 kids. This year I have over 200, just because of the COVID thing. It's a long story, but yeah, so they're like, wow, you really are on YouTube, because I wear Dungeon Class stuff to school, and I have I have a poster in my room of Dungeon Class, and they're like, wow, you really are. And like, I watched one of your videos the other night. I'm like, did you like it? Yeah, that was interesting. And I've had kids come and approach me and want me to start a club, Dungeons and Dragons club, which I'm extremely torn on, because on the one hand, it's like, yes, that'd be awesome. They'd be really great. And on the other hand, it's like, this channel takes a lot of my time outside of school. And I'm like, that's one more thing. And we would have to limit it to like 3 hours or 2 hours or whatever it is after school. And then with COVID, I'd have to have like half the group one time and half the group another time. I'm like, I'm not doing it this year, but I do want to do it. So
so we just had the Bill Allen on the other day,
right?
He had did the same. He had started a club at school, and what they did is they just went virtual after after everything shut down, and the kids took over and are doing themselves, really.
Yeah, I think that'd be the way I'd go. I initially had talked about, I thought, what I need to do is immediately get some DMs, because like, what if I was in my mind, I was trying, how's this going to work? If I had like 30 kids show up, I can't DM a game for 30 kids. I would have to immediately start to break it up a little bit and find some DMs and hopefully have 5 games going or whatever in the class. And then I can just jump in a game or me do one or something, but so I had different ways. I actually was toying with using D&D in the classroom to teach. And I had some ideas of how I was going to do that. And some people.
What ages are the students? What grades are you teaching?
I have seniors, so they're 17 and 18, so they'd be perfect for that.
Oh, they don't. Yeah, I mean, you're high school; they can run their own groups, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. You could just facilitate and make them.
Yeah. So that's probably. I already had. I sent a letter to one of the people who was in charge to say, this is what I want to do, and then that was at the end of last year that COVID had hit, and I'm like,
before the apocalypse.
That was done, right?
Yeah.
And so now, while we're in it, a kid came up to me just this week, and he's like, hey, you ever thought about starting a group after school? I'm like, yeah, I'd like to, but times can be kind of tough right now. So
well, so I guess Bill said, like, he wasn't looking to start a D&D club at school because he had so much other stuff going on, like yourself. He's like, this one girl was just so persistent. She willed it into existence.
Yeah, I know I will. Like I said, as long as they end up running it, it's no. So I'm staying after a little bit after school. It's not a giant deal. But right now with COVID and all, it's just a lot of stuff's canceled.
It's not the year to do it.
No, it's tough.
It's just rough.
And unfortunately for Mark, I've mentioned to you before, Dave, but I am not tech guy at all. I'm just not. And
I heard that somewhere before.
Yeah. So, so Mark does all the editing, which takes a lot of time. He does the thumbnails and all the prep work just for us to be a YouTube channel, and then he helps me get hooked up on my end and what little I can offer. So I'm just a talent on the screen, but
yeah, he just needs to know where he goes and where his cue is, and he goes. Yeah.
So it does take a lot of his time, and I appreciate that for sure. And we had a question too. I saw Joe Seiler said, how many life lessons do you teach through D&D? Dave, what do you think? What kind of life lessons do you teach?
How to survive dragon breath. No. Well, really, I mean, there's so much problem solving and decision making that happens in the course of the game, and how to interact with other people and negotiate. I feel like the social encounters are probably the most valuable. Especially like when you as a player or a character is trying to get something and someone is opposed to it, right? And you have to resolve it in a peaceful manner, right? In the game. So that translates directly over to the real world, as well as just working with others, right? Those I would say are the best. And then also like being a DM, and I don't know so much that you're teaching as the DM, but I think as the DM, you're learning how to coordinate your efforts with, this group and cooperatively tell a story together. Right. So that's a lot of moving pieces, and they're valuable lessons is being able to how to interact with other people, because unlike the game, we can't just pull out our sword and stab them.
Right. Unfortunately, you're true. My daughter may not quite believe that. She's a rogue by heart and by trade almost. But unfortunately, that's true. I agree with you. I think the problem solving, and then probably the most important aspect of Dungeons and Dragons playing together is the ability to work together and come to a decision. Right. And it could, because leadership naturally comes out of people that you wouldn't expect. Creativity and thinking out of the box will come out of people that you wouldn't expect. And then having to come to a consensus is a lost art in a lot of places. We're so used to the internet where we just blast our opinion and everyone either, and you just shout it out. And that's not how the world works when you're out in business or in any social thing. It's like, well, should we go to this? I mean, going to Disney World, we have 4 parks to choose. Kids, where do you want to go? And they all want a different one. Yeah. And so here in Florida, we have so it's like, well, okay, what if we did this? So you compromise, you learn compromising, you learn trading ideas and this kind of thing. That's such a valuable resource for real world encounters. Whether you're at the grocery store or doing anything, we can't afford this week, so let's get this and then we'll do that next time.
Gotta save up for that plate mail armor. It's expensive.
That's right.
We've done layaway in our games.
That's a good idea.
The Black Razor is on that mantle, and Ben, he wants 20,000 gold for that. So
I don't know if people still do layaway or not. I know it used to be a thing.
I don't know.
Yeah, I was just thinking that when you said that, I'm like, do they still do layaway? I mean, people with credit cards just whip that out,
Yeah, I remember, like, I don't know, did they have Jamesways down in Florida?
No.
Jamesways, no.
So it was like one of the earlier box stores, and I remember, or Bradley's.
No Bradley's, no.
We're
so all Walmart and Kmart down here. Kmart.
No, I don't mean now. I mean like 20, 30 years ago.
It still was Kmart and Walmart. Yeah, JCPenney. Sears.
Woolworth was one.
Well, because for us, Walmart is a newer phenomenon, right?
Right.
We had Kmart's though, but they've died. Like I don't know if they exist anywhere.
Yeah, they're gone.
Yeah, but like all those stores had layaway. You know, I just remember being a kid and being drugged to the back of the store where the layaway was.
Yep.
So my mom could make the payment or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked at Kmart for 9 years, and yeah, it was layaway was a big thing. Oh my gosh, there was lines to pay around the holidays. Sometimes,
oh yeah, especially yes, certainly.
Yeah.
It was a thing.
And I worked at Walmart as a young man and met my wife there. So
yeah. So that was kind of like a foreign concept to us. Like Walmart, it was like a new phenomena. Within
Kmart was here first, and then Walmart came and crushed them.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
It is what they do.
Yep.
Crush all the things.
Yeah.
Joe
wants to get his question in. Favorite dragons?
Oh gosh. Well, I actually have a favorite dragon that I used in my campaign, which is the gold dragon. I made her benevolent to the people, where she would have kind of the major NPC that would help the players stay on track and give them quests that were big quests that only they could handle. She would help them, give them boons, whatever. I like the gold dragon, but and then there's some cool ones in these third-party books. My son used a void dragon.
Oh yeah, cool. Doug's a big fan of the void dragon.
Yeah, he likes that. I mean, dragons in general, in my mind, I still think of them as kind of the mythical. They're not all over the place like they are in Dragonlance. Like they're just, when they appear, it's a big deal. In fact, one of my players, the barbarian that kicks down every door, got killed by a red dragon because I had given them in the very beginning of the game a whistle?
Whistle, yeah.
A whistle, and they did some exploring on the item itself and found that it could summon a red dragon. And one of the players would carry it around all the time. I was picturing that they would use it as a getaway when they got in trouble in the city. They would call in a dragon, use that as a distraction. I pictured them using it to get maybe against a whole group of goblins or something. No, they just kept it with them for about a year and a half in real time as we played. Mm-hmm. And then he stole it. He sent me a note and he stole it from the player that had it. And after a battle, he's like, I pull out this whistle and I blow it. And and everyone's like, what are you doing? He was just bored. He's a barbarian and by heart and by soul. He blew the dragon. I had the dragon show up. It was pissed off and it ate him. And so there his character ripped up his character sheet.
One bite.
Yeah, so,
he's like,
and everyone's like,
what?
What? And what? Yes. There you go. So I brought him back later. We retconned it, or at least had him alive, and they went and saved him. But it was a few sessions. He created a new character, which is the brother of his character, and but it was just to me, that's what I would fear. Like I think of dragons more like in the Lord of the Rings, where poor Lake Town was destroyed by this giant thing.
Yeah, yeah. I would say my favorite, but I like them. I like my dragons evil, I guess. A black dragon. I've always been fascinated by the acid breath kind of thing. That's how I like them too. But again, I too like a rare thing to see them, or maybe use them like as a quest giver kind of thing. I like that. But I know it's kind of funny. We did a whole video on using dragons and Dungeons and Dragons. It's kind of funny that
we don't use them
more. Often pretty rare. Yeah, they're often, we don't. It's in the name. You think you're going to, probably people sit down to play Dungeons and Dragons like, okay, here's the dungeon. Where's the dragon? And well, it could be a long time before you're really able to fight a dragon. But a lot of people don't understand that, I think, at first.
But I do like that the starter sets, Mines of Phandelver and the Icefire Peak both have a dragon as part of the, I think that's important to definitely have that in there and in the art that they see, and because it adds to that. It's like the ultimate creature, the apex creature that we all want to meet or whatever. So
I kind of feel the same way. In the sense that dragons should be special, right? And so throwing them around willy nilly just doesn't feel right to me.
No, I agree. It should be and if you're going to fight one, you better be ready. You better be at a high level, and it's going to be an epic long battle. And that's a whole nother thing. The length of that battle, and to keep it interesting, could be a challenge too. So honestly, sometimes I'm I'm like, this group's not ready for a dragon. They think they're ready for a dragon and want to have a dragon, but I don't think they want to go there per se. I do like to instill fear with that, a healthy fear of dragons up front. That's not a bad thing.
You can have them fly by or they see it, but they should make the decision not to go interfere or whatever, at least at that point.
Really early on, I like to scare them with that.
I see Doug is asking any other RPGs that we've been playing or want to play. And although we haven't strayed from D&D, we've changed it. So I've ran a campaign where I took, not a campaign, but like a 4-session scenario where I took Spider-Man and broke Manhattan into pieces. And then I had spider villains, but I D&D-ized them like you guys do.
Yeah.
So I had like Kraven the Hunter and Electro, and I called them different names on the map and as a player, and the Rhino and stuff like that. And so the players, and then Parker Island, and I forgot the quest I had them on, but as they would go to these little islands, they would fight one of the bad guys and get closer to Parker, and why they had and my idea was he was somehow him and his villains were transported to a fantasy setting that was kind of in the area where Manhattan would be. And but we do things like that. We change the setting. We do Dark Sun settings and just upgrade it to 5th edition. We've done, I don't know. I've had so much fun doing that. I haven't ventured into other RPGs yet, really.
The closest thing I think we came as a group is MT Black asked us to play test some of his Cthulhu feeling kind of content.
In New Orleans.
Yeah. And it was a different vibe altogether because it was more like CSI investigative kind of thing. And oh my gosh, you don't want to fight the things per se because oh my gosh, are they powerful? And he's trying to take some of the elements of the Cthulhu thing and put it into, and he actually has like a campaign system that he came out with. So it was interesting. It was very different than anything we've ever done before. I think it takes a certain group that doesn't make me want to fight as much, maybe because it is so investigative and all. But that was interesting. But I kind of would like to play other art. I've been thinking a lot about Pathfinder. I'd like to try that. I've never tried Pathfinder. I've heard it's kind of crunchy, as we call it, as far as numbery. And rolling for everything, which is not usually our style, but I'd like to try it.
Yeah, I mean, it's based off of 3.5 and the 2nd edition. I'm not super familiar with the 2nd edition, so I don't know how close that still is the 3.5. I'm about to actually start playing that campaign next week, I think. So I'm going to figure it out. So I figured I'd check it out because I was asked. GM Juice, master of the game, had invited me to play. But I honestly like I normally wouldn't go to that game just because I'm like, it's just a D&D game. I would just play D&D. Like I tend to be like, I tend to want to play something that's much different, a different genre, when I go away from D&D. Like, I was involved in the same, over on the same channel in Monster of the Week, which was a lot of fun. It's very rules light. You guys are probably you guys are probably like that too. And it's like easy, especially if you got a lot of kids you want to show it to.
Monster of the Week. Okay. I'll write that down.
Yeah. That was a lot of fun. So it's hard though. It's, learning a whole new rule set can be tough. That's why it's nice that there's so many like really simple rules like games out there that you can pick up and kind of jump into them pretty fast.
Runehammer created a game, right, Mark? The index card RPG or whatever. It's supposed to be a little easier to just dish out and run.
Very clever.
But it all goes back to D&D.
I've always wanted to do like a superhero kind of RPG thing.
I was going to say, I wish I had I used to play the Marvel Superheroes, which TSR put out back in the day. And that was a lot of fun. There was a Secret Wars module I had forever that I wanted to play, but no, I didn't have a lot of people that would play it. But
there's a website you can get all that stuff.
I know
on that website. We were playing it for a while. Mutants and Masterminds is really good, but it's not a simple system. It's kind of easy once you start playing. Like all the work is front loaded into character creation.
Right.
There's also I think, but Steve Kenson designed Mutants and Masterminds, but he also designed a couple of Rules Light Supers games too. And a lot of, you can see like his love of and inspiration coming from, the old Marvel Phase Rip games. I think Icons and Bash are 2 games that he made. That are supers games that are kind of rules light and easy to get into. Like, as much as I love Mutants and Masterminds, we would always use Hero Lab to build the characters in, because without it, like, it's a bit of it's a bit much, right? It's like, I feel like building Pathfinder characters are a little bit like that too. But with Mutants and Masterminds, it was kind of worse because, like, sometimes you're building a character that would be the equivalent to building like a 10th level character in D&D. Like, that's the standard where you start the game, right?
Right.
For the power level.
Yeah. So that'd be rough. I guess for us, because we finally got all our family in, and they know the game pretty well. And as often as we get to play, we just haven't taken the time to venture out much. But I see someone mention an Alien RPG. I love Alien and that whole scenario. That'd be fun to do too. So we definitely want to branch out
but a lot of times, like let's say you wanted to, I don't know much about Alien RPG, but a lot of times we feel like if you want that kind of thing in your game, you could just skin something and 5th edition rules and do it, because your players already know the 5th edition rules. And I think that's what was interesting with Empty Black's take, was like, he was making Cthulhu for people who don't want to learn a whole new rule system, which was a kind of an interesting idea. But he's walking a dangerous line, maybe, but but not taking I don't know how the Cthulhu players he probably is being careful not to step too much on their toes. But I kind of like that idea where he's trying to mold something else. Like, if you want to try like a Western, for example, I know Critical Role not too long ago, the group did a Western one, which was kind of cool. If you want to play a Western RPG, you could skin the game and make it work with 5th edition rules, most likely.
Yeah, I mean, even amongst Nerdarchy, we have mixed opinions on that, and I totally get the idea that it's instead of like learning a new rule set, but then at the same time, I feel like sometimes by the time you've customized it to do the thing you want it to do, you've really just created a new rule set where you could have probably just went out and played it. So, I mean, ultimately, what I try and do is just find people that are already playing those games and be like, hey,
sit down.
Can you run this for me? Right. And then I'll just learn it by playing it.
That's the way to go. Yeah, that's the way to go. And right now we have so many options with D&D, with campaign settings, whether we pull from old settings like Ravenloft behind you on your screen, or, whatever it may be. It's just, you can flavor it any way you want and still use the rules. And so for us, that's worked out pretty good. But it's interesting. There's so many opportunities, as long as, again, you just don't lose when you're sitting around a table with a group of buddies playing something.
Yeah. I mean, recently we started playing Cypher System, which I've played a couple of games of that in the past. That's also a great game. It's pretty easy to pick up, and it's intimidating to look at, right? Because you got this like book, pretty thick, right?
Right.
But then honestly, as I was like, let me refresh my memory on what I need to learn, right? So I started reading, right? And I probably only really needed like this much of the rules, right? Because most of it's like player stuff, and you want to use it for this genre or that genre, so it really wasn't that bad. Like, I feel like I ended up reading like 30 pages or something when I decided to refresh my memory on the rules.
Right.
Well, thinking about other settings, do you think D&D Wizards of the Coast will do some kind of space setting like Spelljammer or something like that? Will they go that route at some point?
I don't know. It's hard to say because they've only done like 2 source books, right, for 5e. They did the Eberron book, and they did the Sword Coast Adventures book. But other than that, everything has been adventures, or we got Danithar's Guide to Everything, and Tasha's Cauldron is going to probably be the same kind of format. We've gotten some monster books.
Ravnik,
because this would have to be
we did get Ravnik and Theros as well,
right?
Which are the Magic the Gathering crossovers,
right?
So
they said they're going to do 3. They said they're going to do 3, and so you pretty much had Dragonlance, Dark Sun, Planescape, Spelljammer are probably the 4 that people are talking about.
Or Greyhawk, maybe.
But, Greyhawk. That's right.
Yeah.
5. Sorry.
Who knows? So I know I don't want another Greyhawk.
So like Greyhawk and Dragonlance, like I enjoyed those settings for what they were. Even Dragonlance, I enjoyed reading those novels, but I just don't feel like I need a Dragonlance book to play Dragonlance. Like if I really wanted to play it, I feel like we have everything we need.
Mm-hmm.
So it just seems like it just seems like a waste of content there, right? Where like, do we need all of the flavor and history and stuff again? Not really. Like, I think you can buy those PDFs on RPG Drive-Thru or DM's Guild, right? So you can literally get all the content.
I didn't think Dragonlance would be one of the ones they were doing because I felt like, for one, I didn't know they were making new novels, but I felt like that was an old thing. And why would people be interested in something that they may not have heard anything about? And how different is it, other than there's a dragon war going on that your players could do in regular D&D? So,
while Dark Sun would be different enough, and I would like to see that, they still haven't figured out psionics yet.
No.
Right.
It's from what I can see. Like, the Mystic isn't there yet. The alternate thing that they've been testing, it seems like people hate as a replacement to psionics, right? The psionic classes. So I don't think that's going to fly.
Right.
And Dark Sun, you're going to need those gritty rules and how does it work in a world with no metal, or that's super rare. Spelljammer would be cool. There's a lot of new stuff to mechanically that we would need for that as well. And I wouldn't mind seeing a Domains of Dread kind of book, right? Where it went over the other parts of Ravenloft and the rules for what happens if you start getting tempted by the dark powers, and that the Ravenloft stuff was really good, and maybe even more in depth into running that gothic horror story kind of stories, or even because of the way Ravenloft is, you could actually run a lot of different types of horror, not just the gothic.
Right.
Yeah, I've been thinking about doing or creating, maybe Mark should do this, but the hotel from The Shining, and making that become a dungeon, or something. Or
heck yeah!
And that would work in a Ravenloft setting perfectly. That Strahd, you're surrounded by mist, and here's a hotel up in the thin mountains. And
now you're speaking my language.
Yeah, I mean that's
Stephen King.
Yeah, it'd be. I mean, there's so many things you can do. That's what I love about it.
And it's so adaptable. 5th edition is so adaptable that you can twist it to about anything. And I think in that lies the rub that, like Dave was saying, it's like are you going to add to that? What more do you need? Yeah. And so then that becomes a question of, are they going to sell books that people go, not enough new content? I don't know.
No, people will buy it. People will definitely buy it. I think stamping if they stamp those names on it, there's going to be some nostalgia. Actually, the people that need it the least will be the ones most likely to buy it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you're right. I buy it just because,
Yeah, but where newer gamers might not buy it because it may not interest them. They don't have the nostalgia to build on. Right. So it is I'm kind of curious to see where that would go. What do you guys think of the UA that just dropped? It's very dragon themed.
Yeah.
So I'm like, where are they going to put this? Like, what is this going to... Especially if we see a couple more UAs come out and there's even more dragon stuff.
Right. That's what I was thinking. And that's why I wondered if they're still planning on doing a Dragonlance thing and dropping some novels by other writers, I guess. And just
testing the waters.
I think, and I think too,
that
D&D has a treasure trove of campaign settings that could easily be Netflix series style, or we don't have to go to the big theater. Imagine a Dragonlance series or and if they foster this every 5-10 years, at some point these things can get picked up and they can make real money. Imagine a Ravenloft setting on a Netflix series with Strahd and a group of adventurers going through it, and then they stamp the little D&D symbol on the bottom, and I mean that would be that'd be gold for them. So
it would.
I don't know if you guys play Magic the Gathering or not, because I do not.
I play.
Mark does.
Yeah, I play.
So is there a really heavily dragon themed series?
series that's dragon themed? Not that I recall, but I haven't played as much of recently. Like I haven't played like the last set or two maybe, but I don't recall any that's heavily dragon themed. But
so who knows? Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, I don't know where they're going with it. I know how well did those sell the Ravnica? I don't know what those look like the sales.
I mean, they did Ravnica and then they did Theros, but also like they're very different books. Like even if you care nothing about Magic the Gathering, like Ravnica gave us a really good like world with these dynamics between these different guilds and the idea that this whole world is one giant city. So I felt like that was pretty unique. And then Theros is like, oh, do you want to play Epic Greek? Like, boom, here you go.
Yeah. Right.
Which I think is great. And then that was, I like that idea a lot. That was a broad spectrum versus Ravnica was more Magic the Gathering based. I like that. I like that. I like mythology stuff anyway. So I'm like, that's all I'm on. And that was an easy sell. I mean, who doesn't like mythology and bring that into the game?
Yeah, that was good.
Ravnica also added some other things like pseudoscience, right, into it as well, and mutants, right, kind of, or mutations with the
mutations, steampunk, a little more steampunkish too. So
so that's kind of cool. So maybe the dragon stuff is for a Magic the Gathering line. I don't know. I don't even know what they're called. I don't even know what the different ones are called. Right.
The settings or the editions when they come out with new cards. What is that called, Mark? I don't know.
Well, they just call them an edition. I mean, they have like there's different ones. I'm trying to think of the most recent ones, but
they actually fancy Magic cards.
They actually had editions for a while. First, second, third. They actually had editions, and now they have them. They're named after something or whatever. And they seem to be.
And D&D is now dropping an edition coming up this year, right? They are dropping an edition in Magic the Gathering.
Yeah,
I heard that.
Yep, they're doing that.
They're going to do their own Magic the Gathering source book as a D&D book.
Oh gosh, they might
be like Inception.
Right. I know. I'm like, what the heck? Yeah, I stopped playing Magic the Gathering when they started doing these giant cards and stuff. And I was like, what the freak is that? It's a complicated game. I like it a lot, but it's complicated. It can be very complicated.
I just never got into it. Ted, like the last car that Ted bought was when he sold all of his Magic the Gathering cards and went and bought a car. So I mean, used car, but still, it's like he had like a bunch of old ones.
Yeah.
I
played more in the heyday, and actually, funny thing, I played when it was semi-popular, and then it had a peak that was pretty big, and then it ebbed big time, and now it's like really big. Like, it's definitely exploding again, and I don't know if it's nostalgia part of it pushing it, but it's kind of funny how these things are cyclical, but there's big money in that game.
Well, again, I feel like it's the same thing. Like we've been video games since we were kids, and getting personal gaming, whether it's D&D table or even Magic the Gathering, is just a different dynamic that people are finding out they enjoy more. I just believe that. I believe that people, we need contact with other people, and although this year with COVID things are a little different. I feel like just getting together in groups and hanging out and doing things like that everyone's feeling the benefit of that, which we had as kids because that's the only way we knew how to play. But video games through the 90s and 2000s had taken over. And even the gaming itself became one player. Like it is now, it's hard to find couch co-op, they call it, where two people can sit together and play. You have to play with somebody else in another computer. Even in my house, I have to play with my son and he's in the other room. I can't be in the same room. And I don't like that. I like it where my wife and I could play Baldur's Gate on the PlayStation 2 and go through together or Diablo or Gauntlet or whatever.
So I'm going to take one more question from the chat from Joe.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sure.
He wants to know favorite mythology.
Oh, wow.
Favorite mythology. Is he referencing like setting? Is he thinking setting or is he thinking,
I take it as just real world mythology.
Okay. Well.
Or is he talking Roman versus Egyptian?
Yeah. That's the way I take it.
Okay, I would definitely go Roman. And storyline, I just love the Minotaur. storyline. Trying to think what else. Gosh, I've taught mythology in the classroom off and on. I'm trying to remember some of the stuff I've done.
For me, I'm totally Norse, and also
that's where
I don't know if you can actually
Norse
call
is good too.
That's where I am. Thor and Odin and Balder.
I don't know if you can call it mythology anymore. You know, so pagan religions are on the rise.
I guess that's true, but that's where I was going to say was the Norse mythology. Again, because of my comic book background, I collect a lot of Thor, and they stole right from it. I mean, they just basically took the storylines from Norse mythology. You used to get the books in a library of the actual Norse stuff and Nordic stuff, and I'm watching even the Viking shows and what's the good one, Mark, that we both like?
Oh, The Last Kingdom.
The Last Kingdom, and these shows. Yeah, they show a lot of the habits that they had, the things that they did, and why they did things, and the Norse mythology is one of the ones I gravitate towards for sure.
Yeah. Well, I really like the Norse for heritage reasons, right? My great grandparents were from Åland, which is the island between Sweden and Finland. Sure. But also because their mythology, their stories were different. Like those gods are all fated to die. They're gods, but they're still not mortal, but they're not immortal either. They can they still die, and they live with that knowledge that they're moving towards that. So I feel like it just makes them more heroic than some of the other deities, some of the other pantheons. It's a lot easier to be a hero and be a badass when you have nothing on the line.
Right. Yeah,
that's true.
No, I agree.
So the tragedy of it. But with that, we are past the hour mark. Any final thoughts before we head on out?
No, it's been a pleasure being with you today, Dave. This is actually a dream come true for us because we honestly we wanted.
You need bigger dreams, my friend.
Yeah, I guess so. Right? Now they say don't meet your idol, your heroes, but no, we found our hero pretty awesome to hang out with. So I appreciate you having on us. You have been complimentary from the very beginning, and but I remember you commenting on our very first video and was like, "Wow, Nerdarchy comment on our video," and that meant a lot to us. And anyone that does this, I recommend if you're a YouTuber trying to do this, it is a job, it is a commitment. It is a lot of work, but you guys make it look easy, and that's what it tricked us. I mean, it convinced us that we needed to do this, and we really appreciate that and appreciate your support along the way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's been a pleasure, and again, just encourage everyone to play. Everyone find your group wherever that group is. If you don't have one, just become a DM and convert your friend, your brother, your sister, your mom, your dad, and expand from there. Go to a gaming store. Go online, and you can find tons of online gaming now, especially with COVID, and enjoy it, have fun, and grow. So
absolutely.
Thanks again, Dave. We appreciate it. Sure.
Well, thanks for coming on, folks. As always, down in the description, you find links to go check out Dungeon Class. Go check it out for sure. Go hang out with Mark and Gonzo over there. And until next time, stay nerdy.
Awesome.
Thank you.